Dorna zongmerian lan tonjira teriera chujir kola sobair namram jirna rubrushe sanje choyer mepa dan tirik devjin toba dan zinmet plumet chunyet dan odonne ranjin jinya do namgun monzo shanchep dan zhima wakchak pjibar pan sanjim nyangan deban dambi tonda nimet nyet Namba tamchit jamepa samit jamit yondan dan yermit sanyet tarwa kangde devjin nyet shirtir rimu zhibshepa zandang zanlam kepa gangji yanlak gangshi pa devjin ngizan met paranjir tenendala chitkanji nga yagzigna Kishikji ngaldag gerpo tetagla ngaldag gerpe tetagla irang rena jinbadang tele tena tuunjira te ramo lela rabjuru tela ngumbra jornamla chig yeragjan songjirapa tena yeragjan songwena tema tsamshir ramo te yanlag tamchid zogbar yanlag tamchid yon zogbar manjir Jin Xi Hui Xi So Der Nam Danda Gang Yinba, Jin Dang Tzu Chum Zo La So. Namba Gun Jim Chordun Ba, Stony Tena, Zig Jodo Shir Yishi Nam Jurba. Ksar Dam Cho Dang Tak Shid Shir Tadat Mepshir Gut Dang Zir Nimi Khtirin Kur Nam Dam Song, Tina Santi Matopa, Nyon Deba Matop De Gotang Gozir Panes, Nimar Tavra Mani. Mani vision, Master Mani vision.
So now, please give rise to the Supreme Bodhicitta while listening to this teaching. And let's continue with the class on the Uttara Tantra Shastra. In fact, this Mahayana Uttara Tantra Shastra probably won't be finished in this year. We finished some of it for the first half of the year, but because we had other classes planned for the second half of the year, therefore, I think it is a little bit difficult for us to study a lot of this class. And we only have this one class per 2 weeks. It's a little bit scattered, in my opinion, but we'll see how it goes. So next week, on the next Saturday, we will have the class on the Analects of Confucius. Well, I think for people who are really interested and who have the perseverance to listen to the class, then they can persevere no matter if it's a week in between or a month in between or 100 days in between. They will persistently listen to this teaching. Therefore, I really encourage you to do so, to persist in studying this. What is the teaching of Uttara Tantra Shastra? Where we are right now is in fact on the first chapter, that is the chapter of the Buddha nature. And out of this, it has 8 outlines, and we're currently on the last one, the 8th outline, that talks about the non-duality of the qualities. The previous class, we ended at the Dharmakaya, Tathagata, Noble Truth, and Absolute Nirvana. In fact, these qualities are inseparable. Other than becoming Buddhahood, there is no Nirvana. So we stopped over there last time. And that was, in fact, where Ponsog Rinpoche, the supreme teacher, the Sugata, the Tathagata, Ponsog Rinpoche, once he finished teaching this stanza, he temporarily then manifested parinirvana in front of the sentient beings and dissolved into Dharmakaya. So that's where that was in fact the last stanza that Ponsog Rinpoche taught. When he taught that other than Buddhahood there is no nirvana, and that's when he entered into nirvana. So why don't we contemplate upon how and why Ponsog Rinpoche stopped turning the Dharma wheel for us when he taught the stanza. Ponsog Rinpoche he continued to study since he was 13 years old until he was 76. And then in between all these years, even in the 50s and 60s, that was the dark time of the Dharma. He continued to teach in caves, in secluded areas, and in tents, and in areas that's very difficult to find. He continued to give the teaching of the Dharma in various places and to attract people and then give them the Dharma teachings. And once he finished teaching this stanza, he then entered into parinirvana. For people who have met Ponsog Rinpoche in person or not, I think lots of people that no matter you met him before or not, you should then contemplate upon why he passed away at the time when he finished teaching over here. He didn't pass into nirvana when he was given teaching on the first turning or the second turning of the Dharma, but he passed into nirvana when he was given teaching on the third turning of the Dharma wheel, the Buddha nature aspect of the teaching, and especially when it talks about other than Buddhahood, there is no nirvana. I think we should all contemplate upon this and discuss upon this. Anyhow, let's continue with the teaching. In terms of the supreme and auspicious connections that we have during the teachings of the third turning of the Dharma wheel, in the Buddha nature teaching, in the profound teaching of the Tathagata Garbha, the Buddha nature, I think we have such fortune. And we're so very lucky to have this opportunity to listen to this teaching. And it is the most valuable thing that could ever happen in our life. According to Master Xuanzang's translated sutra that was this way said by the Buddha Sutra, it says that, in fact, it talks about the stories of the Buddha's stories, where it says that in the Buddha's Dharma and Vinaya, one develops sincere devotion. With its growing and strengthening, one will not be converted by evil traditions. So the root of your wisdom, of your faith, of your samadhi, and so on, and of your Vinaya, all of this will not be turned, will not be shaken by the heretics' teaching. In fact, if we were to listen to the Mahayana teachings continuously, then our faith and our devotion and Vinaya would get even more strengthened. Therefore, we should continuously to listen to the Dharma teachings, because this kind of opportunity is in fact quite precious. Because of our education, because of our environment that we grew up, in fact, I think it is quite rare to receive the teachings of the Mahayana Dharma. But now we have encountered the supreme Mahayana Dharma. And if we were to encounter the Buddha's teaching, the Mahayana teaching, when we were old, when we get old and don't have the sharp faculties and don't have the good faculties of eyes, ears, and all of these, then it will be difficult for us to accept as well. So to have this kind of opportunity to listen to the Dharma, especially when you have this faith towards the Dharma, this is in fact quite supreme and precious. And once you listen to the Dharma, it is easy for you to give rise to supreme bodhicitta and compassion towards all sentient beings as well as wisdom. Therefore, I think have this opportunity to listen to the supreme Buddha nature teaching, to the Mahayana teaching. It is quite a cherishable thing, and you should all be quite joyful about this. You should rejoice yourself, in fact. Anyhow, last time we talked to the aspect of the inseparability of the qualities, and now we will continue to talk about the four explanations, or the detailed explanations of the four synonymous names with the four reasons. So, since the unpolluted expanse has put briefly four different types of meanings, it should be known in terms of four synonymous, the Dharmakaya and so forth. In fact, we should know that this kind of Dharmakaya, this kind of Buddha nature is in fact unpolluted, undefiled. And for this kind of Tathagata Garbha, we should describe it with four types or four aspects of meanings. Later on, we will then talk about the inseparability and the qualities and so on. And out of the four, we will be able to understand about the Buddha nature. Previously, we've already talked about the Tathagata Garbha, the Dharmakaya, the Noble Truth, as well as the Absolute Nirvana. Previously, we've already talked about the four kinds of synonymous names. And there are the four aspects to understand the differences among these four names. And then in the next stanza, it will talk about the different kinds of differences. But in this stanza, it talks about how it is then. So it's a general statement. And then the next one, it says that Buddha qualities are indivisible. The disposition is attained as it is. The true state is always free from any fickleness and deceit. Since beginningless time, the nature has been peace itself. So it is a combination of names and the meaning. And over here it talks about the Buddha's teaching, the Buddha's Dharma, or the Buddha's qualities. In fact, it's then divided into such as the 10 powers and 18 uncommon qualities and the 4 fearlessness. In fact, all of these are already complete at the stage of causal stage. It is not only completed at the stage of Buddhahood. In fact, when at causal stage, it is already completed in the way that it is indivisible. And in such a way, it is called the Dharmadhatu. So, or the Dharmakaya. In fact, the Dharmakaya is the noble truth that the mundane beings could then realize. And it is not once you attain fruition of Buddhahood, then you'll be able to attain such qualities. In fact, at the causal stage, it is already complete. In the Sutra of neither increases nor decreases, it says that the so-called profound meaning refers to the highest truth. The highest truth refers to the nature of sentient beings. The nature of sentient beings refers to the Buddha nature. The Buddha nature refers to Dharmakaya. It sounds very easy. in fact, the Buddha nature that resides in sentient beings is called the Tathagata as well as the Dharmakaya. So the first point is that it is indivisible. Do not take this teaching as this teaching has nothing to do with me. If you ever want to understand the third turning of the Dharma wheel, you have to then take it into your heart and contemplate upon it. In the second turning of the Dharma wheel, it talks about emptiness. And in the Vajrayana, it talks about the primordial purity, where it talks about the primordial purity is Dharmakaya, and then the luminosity is Sambhogakaya. It seems that everything is from the basis of emptiness. But in the third turning of the Dharma wheel, where it talks about the Dharmakaya, it talks about the qualities of the Buddha, the different kinds of merits of the Buddha, such as the 10 powers and 4 fearlessness. And those are all wisdom, and all of such wisdom is called Dharmakaya. This is explained from the aspect of indivisibility. And then the next one talks about this disposition to becoming this Buddha, which is a true state present since the beginningless time is directly attained as it is. In the light of this meaning, the undefiled expanse is called the Tathagata, or the one gone to suchness. All suchness is truthfully perceived and truthfully understood, and that is called one gone to suchness. According to the great treatise on the perfection of wisdom, it says that just like there is gold in goldstone, silver in silver ore, in all worldly dharmas there exists the essence of nirvana. So let it be gold or silver. In fact, it is already intrinsically existent in the stone or in the mind that it has it. Just like that, the sentient beings, in fact, already have the Buddha nature. In the commentary of the To Arise Faith in the Mahayana Sutra, where it is quoted the great treatise on the perfection of wisdom, it says that there is gold in the gold stone, silver in the silver ore. The fire has the quality of heat, and the water has the quality of moisture. For the same reason, the sentient beings have the quality of Buddha nature. In fact, in the commentary, it then expanded or quoted rather a little bit differently than the ones stated in the great treatise on the perfection of wisdom. Over here, what it talks about is that, in fact, this Tathagata is already intrinsically existent from the beginningless time. It is not that once you study it or once you discover it, then it's there. It's not like that at all. In fact, with your discovery or not, such Buddha nature is already exist in you. That's the second one. The third one is that its nature is the true state which does not change into something else, is free from any deceit at all times, and free from fickleness or unreliability. This true state has become the field of experience of the primordial wisdom of the noble ones. In fact, if this kind of nature changes or have any kind of changes, then it could deceit. Just like how people, if they change their mind, then they'll make a deceit to others. But over here, why it is noble truth? It is because it is undefiled expanse. It is changeless. It is then devoid of fickleness and unreliability. And the fourth one is the Dharma Dhatu has been by nature utterly pure since beginningless time, and the adventitious defilement have been totally purified up to their very end. And in this light of the meaning, this undefiled expanse is expressed by the term nirvana. So the four terms are explained over here: the Dharmakaya, Tathagata, and the Noble Truth, and Nirvana. These are the four synonymous names, and it is in this verse it explains the names according to its meanings or from different angles to explain them. In fact, sometimes it's very difficult for us to differentiate the slight difference among the terms such as Tathagata, Noble Truth, and Nirvana. But it is stated very clearly. I really hope that you could read into it and see the subtle differences that is stated over here. The next one is a detailed explanation of their essential meaning and detailed explanation of the fact that the Buddha and Nirvana are no different. Previously, we talked about Tathagata and Nirvana and Dharmakaya and Noble Truth. In fact, all of those are non-dual. They're of no difference. How do you see that their qualities are different? It says that direct perfect enlightenment with regard to all aspects are abandoned of the stains along with their imprints are called the Buddha and Nirvana respectively. In truth, these are not two different things. Over here it talks about the Buddha and the Nirvana. Buddha is then the one who has the perfect realization, and from the aspect of Nirvana, from the aspect of the Buddha, it talks about the merits or the qualities of enlightenment or enlightened ones or realization, and from the aspect of Nirvana, it talks about the qualities of eradication or abandonment. In fact, the Buddha, once they made the perfect realization, it is called the perfect realization or bodhi or enlightenment. At that time, they're called the perfect Buddha. And then from the viewpoint of abandoning all the afflictions and habitual patterns and all of those karmic tendencies, from this aspect, you can call it abandonment or eradication of all of those above. In fact, in the primordial wisdom of qualities of realization and abandonment, in fact, they're completely inseparable and do not exist as two different things. In front of the noble one's personal experience and realization, there are no difference. The enlightenment, the realization, or the abandonment and eradication, they are of no difference. They're of one taste. So from this aspect, the realization and the abandonment, they are speaking of the same thing from two different angles. One is from the angle of making realization. The other one is from the point of view of abandonment. Just as when we clear, when we clean this mirror, if we were to wipe all the dust off the mirror, then we can say that it is cleansed. And after all the dust are wiped off, that mirror could clearly reflect, and this is from the aspect of reflection or realization aspect of the Buddha. So, in fact, these two are in fact both important. The cleanse or wiping off the dust and the reflection quality of the mirror, both of these are important to reflect any image inside of the mirror. But these two are both of equal importance. It is speaking described from the two different aspects. It's not like one dust was fighting from the other dust. It is for the same reason. It is not that once we attain realization that our realization won over our afflictions. It's not like that. There are different descriptions that described in the Pramana teachings or Buddhist logic teachings. The Buddha, or when it talks about the realization and the abandonment qualities, In fact, it is quite clearly stated.
下面呢就是讲这个。
There were two aspects, right? One is on the realization, the other one's on the abandonment. So over here it is detailed explanation on the meaning of liberation. It says that liberation is distinguished by indivisibility from qualities present in all their aspects, innumerable, inconceivable, and unpolluted. Such liberation is also called Tathagata. In fact, the qualities of Tathagata is complete with immeasurable kinds of qualities beyond any end. Says because the Buddha or the Tathagata has the complete qualities. Therefore, it includes all kinds of qualities or merits, including 10 powers and 4 fearlessness. And they have types of qualities that beyond any end, they're innumerable. When we talk about the 10 powers included the 10 kinds of different powers, and out of these, one of this wisdom is the wisdom that could distinguish the object and the non-object. In fact, out of all the wisdom of the Tathagata, he has such kind of quality to distinguish the innumerable kinds of dharma, innumerable kinds of phenomena. That is why we say that out of all the phenomena that is as countless as the sand of Ganges River, in fact, the Tathagata could be able to see all of them and understand all of these kind of phenomena without any kind of obstructions, obscurations. And this kind of wisdom is not being understood by any of the heretics and by the Shravakas and Pratikas, just as how Shravakas don't even understand the deepest teaching of birth, death, old age, sickness, and so on. In fact, lots of mundane beings constantly say that I don't understand, I really don't get it. This is quite smart and very wise, I think. In fact, that shows that you know what you don't know, especially when it comes to comparison to the Tathagata. When you compare your afflictions to those of the Shravakas, you will be able to see that you have great afflictions. And when you compare yourself in terms of the knowledge, compare such knowledge to those of the scientists, you'll be able to understand that at least you understand what you don't understand. This is quite wise. This is much better that you don't understand than you consider yourself as omniscient. There are people who never studied the profound teachings from the Tripitakas, and they feel that, oh, I have a bachelor degree, I have lots of different scholastic degrees, and I've taught in universities for 30 years, and I've been a professor for 30 years, and I'm almost getting my 10 years. There are lots of titles, PhDs and doctorates and all of those. But when it comes to the most profound truth, how much do you understand? It's very difficult to say if that kind of learning and teaching is related to your degrees and titles. Before I study all these kind of profound teachings, in fact, I always debated with my teachers whenever I have such opportunities. At that time, I really feel that I was really smart and I was really good. I was very eloquent and very good at arguing with my teachers. But once I studied such profound dharmas, my arrogance was then distracted by the profound dharmas that is taught by the previous noble ones. Don't even mention about the wisdom of the Buddha, the teachings given by Chandragirti and Nagarjuna, and all of those great masters. In fact, it really gave me lots of the hit on my head, so to speak. In fact, out of all the teachings, I think this text is rather easy, especially when we compare this to the ones of the Pramana teachings of the Buddhist logic, the seven treatises of the Buddhist logic. So compared to that, I think this one's rather easy. Anyhow, my point is to say that the Dharma, in fact, has great qualities and great teachings within profound teachings. So over here, then it talks about the different kinds of qualities, such as the quality of innumerable, the quality of inconceivable, and the quality of undefiled. And what is liberation? Liberation is Tathagata. Because of their qualities and aspects, then such kind of liberation that is innumerable, inconceivable, and unpolluted, then that is Tathagata, that is liberation. We are fettered in samsara. And why is that? Because we don't understand this kind of teaching. And once we understand this kind of teaching, then that could be called liberation or Tathagata. In fact, the teaching over here, when it talks about liberation, the kind of liberation that is discussed is very different than those of the Shravaka or Theravada teachings. The Shravaka teachings are called the common vehicle, as well as the Mahayana teachings up to the second turning of the Dharma wheel. But in the third turning of the Dharma wheel, the teachings is in fact quite different. It talks about we have intrinsically already inherent quality like this that is already liberated. The only difference and the only thing that bounds us to liberation is that we don't recognize, and we don't recognize this nature. We don't know that we have this nature. If you have time, I really hope that you could read into the Parinirvana Sutra, where Mahakashyapa asked the Buddha, saying that according to what you've taught, then the Tathagata must have already attained enlightenment. Then why? But then how could you explain that if you had already eradicated the ocean of afflictions, why did you then get married with Yashodhara and then give birth to Rahula and then practiced for 5 years and then went through all these hardships to attain enlightenment again? What is the point of all these if you were already enlightenment? Then the Buddha replied to Mahakashyapa, saying that, in fact, I've already attained enlightenment. But such kind of enlightenment is not that I've already eradicated the ocean of afflictions in order to attain liberation. It is because I am already liberated. But because I have not eradicated the oceans of liberation, I then was reborn in this human realm and got married and gave birth to Rahula. Therefore, the Buddha's nature is not like that. It is he was already liberated. So in the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, it taught this teaching. That was the last teaching. this kind of teaching is not given in the first turning and the second turning of the Dharma wheel, which could make lots of people very much confused. They may probably feel that, how would you explain that? Why would you say that? They would have all kinds of confusions. In fact, the truth of the Dharma is just like so. According to the Great Heap Jewel Sutra, it says that whether the Buddha appears in this world or not, the nature of all phenomena does not increase or decrease. It cannot be increased or decreased under any circumstances, for the nature of all phenomena permanently exists and is unchangeable. So, the Buddha was born or not, the nature of the Dharma is already like this, is in fact just like that, is that. And this kind of teaching is very much different than those of the teachings included in Theravada teachings. The majority numbers of Buddhists, in fact, their understanding is based on the Theravada teaching. They are not well educated in terms of the Mahayana teachings. And the Mahayana teachings are somewhat different, and sometimes even would completely cut through your usual habitual patterns of understanding what Dharma is. When people are looking at other people saying that, well, this person really have lots of anger, that's terrible, he's not a good practitioner. But in fact, from the Mahayana, the true Mahayana teaching, you can say that if this person have lots of anger, he also have lots of potential for the great mirror-like wisdom. And if this couple are arguing at home a lot, have lots of anger, it is then based on their great mirror-like wisdom. And if they were to argue a lot, it means that they still have lots of love between them. If they don't argue, then it means that they don't have such wisdom. And such kind of anger is no other than great manifestation of the primordial wisdom. But to see such nature is the key. And it is only of this very small number of people who could see that. The Theravada practitioners, they wouldn't say that, oh, wow, you're so angry, therefore you must have lots of the great mirror-like wisdom. The Theravada practitioners won't say that at all. The Theravadas would take the greed and anger and all of those poisons as something very solid and should be eradicated and abandoned right away. But in the third turning of the wheel of Dharma teaching, it talks about, in fact, when you see the nature of it, then in all of these kind of afflictions would only appear just as the ripples on the water. So this kind of teaching is quite rare in this society nowadays. Now, next one, it is with the examples. Detailed explanation of these stated above by means of examples, and the first one is by the example of the painter. Suppose that some painters master their craft, each with respect to a different part of the body, so that whichever part one would know how to do, he would not succeed with any other part. In fact, lots of artists nowadays, they work with a whole studio to finish a painting because they know different aspects they're proficient in different aspects or different parts of the body. Some are really good at painting the head, some are really good at painting the eyes, the nose, ears, and so on. They only know how to paint certain parts really well. So different people have to work together to then paint together. it's kind of like the Western medicine. If you had certain sickness or illness in certain areas, then you go to those specific departments to look at what's wrong with your body. Just like that, the painters are like so. Some people are very good at painting certain parts, and if the person who's very good at painting the head, this person has left the country and not able to join the whole group to finish the painting, then it's very difficult for this whole painting to be successfully finished. Therefore, they have to work as a group. Maybe all the other people have already painted excellently, but there's only one that is missing. Then this painting won't be successful. The next one says that then the king, the ruler of the country, hands them a canvas and gives the order: "You all gather and paint my image on this." So he gives this canvas to all the painters, only one canvas, and then asks them to gather together and paint the king's image. You have to paint me really beautifully. You have to paint my natural beauty. Just like lots of people would require others to take very good photos of them. Well, it's rather very difficult if you don't look like a model or if you don't look that beautiful. It's very difficult to make you beautiful with a photo. And lots of times they don't get very satisfied with the photographer. So you can't really blame it to the photographer. You rather should think that it's your own problem. So I'm not sure how the king looks. In fact, in our world, there is a similar story. In China mainland, there was an emperor around the late Tang Dynasty, and his name is Li Keyong, and he had only one eye. He was half blind, and he was a cripple as well. So he asked lots of painters to paint him and require them to paint him really well, very beautiful and very handsome. And the first painter, when he approaches and painted this king, and painted him really handsome, and then the king, after seeing the painting, he said, "This is not me. This is not me at all. I don't look like this." And then he gave the order and killed this painter. Then the second painter, he requested to come to his palace to paint him. Then this second painter, after learning the first painter's lesson, he painted him as who he is. So one eye blind and one leg crippled. And then this king said, "I can't let the later generation to see me like this." And then he killed this second painter as well. And then the third painter approaches. The third painter very creatively posed this king. He then painted this king from a profile perspective, where he only painted him with one eye, with a good eye, and then he made the king stepping on the stone with the crippled leg. So from the painter's perspective, he did paint according to reality, but he skillfully hid all the defects of this emperor. Also, over here, I would like to show you some slides. The same story of Napoleon. In fact, Napoleon is not very tall, rather very short at that time. And his painter then posed Napoleon on the horse to hide his lack of height. Well, sometimes you can then read into the story of Napoleon as well, and the paintings. Khenpo Chuchu, when he talked about the Tokuuba, that is his teacher. In fact, lots of disciples would talk about the Tokuuba being really handsome when he's riding a horse. In fact, he doesn't, because Lama Wuba is rather very short, and when he's riding the horse, it doesn't look very good. And so Lama Wuba would always ride on the horse and kind of show off by saying, "Look, how do I look right now?" And he would say that, in fact, when it comes to Madhyamika and teachings, the Lama is really good. But when it comes to relating to how people praise them and praise him, he doesn't really have he doesn't have lots of wisdom to differentiate the true praise from the false ones. So that's one aspect, and then the second one I would like to say. Peter Rubens is a very good painter. In fact, he used this system of painting in studios. He would employ different people who paint very good in certain aspect and then gather them together to finish one painting. When we went to Spain or Italy, in Europe, we can see lots of the paintings by Rubens exhibited in different galleries. The previous painting I showed you, it was a story stated in the Bible where it talks about the king give the order to kill the babies, the infants below age of 2. And you can see, just looking at his painting, in fact, your eyes are always circulating around the painting. Lots of scholars would feel that if Rubens were to be born in this age, he would be a great animator, because his painting is quite animate and very dynamic. So he would make draft or thumbnail, and then his painters who work under him, or his disciples, his students, and other painters would then paint such draft, and they all have different tasks. Some would paint the foot, some would paint the face. So the artists, they have some very special energy that he could express in his painting. Lankaji, who was a great Thangka painter, he lived around the era that was 300 years ago, so 17th or 18th century. At that time, he would paint in very small scale, on a very small tree or leaf. In fact, lots of things are included. Very meticulous paintings. Some birds could be on the small leaves that's painted on the Thangka. So this Thangka painter, it is said that he had received the blessings from Pamasambhava, and because of some conflicts among different schools and sects, therefore he couldn't paint Pamasambhava on every painting. Therefore, he would paint a tiny Pamasambhava in the pupil of a lama, that he would paint in a rather average size. if you were to zoom into certain parts of his painting, a leaf, a flower, you'll be able to see after it is 10 times or 100 times zoomed, lots of detailed things are included. And they're not fuzzy at all. They're in fact very meticulously painted and very detailedly painted and described. The study of his tanka is in fact a project that we're doing right now. Anyhow, Peter Rubens' painting is quite famous and well known in the West. Majority of his paintings are done by his studios in Qinghai province, in Sichuan province, usually in Nepal as well. In fact, usually what happens is that lots of artists are really famous, but their paintings are not done by themselves. The majority part of their paintings are painted by others. It is only their eyes are painted by the masters, because they're very good at doing that, and it's the most crucial part. Someone brought a large tanka painting of Pamasambhava from Nepal or India somewhere. Anyhow, I was very happy to look at this, and especially when he told me that this painting was painted by a great master. And on one hand, I was very happy, but on the other, I kind of doubted if that painter finished the whole thing. Anyhow, in fact, I feel that the painters have very special strength and energy and creativity in terms of painting. But Van Gogh, Vincent van Gogh is rather very different than those of the painters who had large studios and lots of employees. Van Gogh, he painted by himself, such as his self-portrait. He was extremely poor, and nobody knew at that time his painting would be such a good seller after 100 years of his passing. So Van Gogh was pursuing a woman but rejected, and then he cut off his ear and sent it to that woman to pursue her, and then mailed it to the woman. Sometimes I think artists, they could have some quite crazy and outrageous actions. Anyhow, some artists would paint in studio, and some, like Vincent van Gogh, would paint solo. So anyhow, the metaphor is in fact quite important. The king said that you have to paint my painting, my image. And then the others are painting. And out of the group of painters, one of them then left the country and leave for another country. And then because of his leave, the whole group cannot finish the entire painting. Just like in a group, sometimes in terms of management, if one key person left the group, lots of the management tasks cannot be done properly. Just like that, once this one painter leaves, and this king cannot receive a complete painting of his image, just as the whole body is complete but the head is empty. So this is a metaphor, and I think that it's very easy to understand that a key person is missing from the group. Then how could this painting be done properly? In fact, a perfect painting, in terms of creating something perfect or complete, each part is important. You cannot have only one eye but not the other eye. You cannot have one leg but not the other leg. In fact, if you were to lose one key painter to finish a certain part of the painting, then it cannot be a complete, non-complete painting. And then it says that the cause. It says that all of the different kind of qualities, the 6 paramitas, the generosity, morality, patience, and diligence, and samadhi or meditation, and the wisdom paramita. All of these paramitas are the individual, are the different painters within the whole group. So without either one of them, then the painting cannot be completed. Similarly, without any one of the paramitas, then the qualities cannot be complete. Over here, it says that emptiness endowed with all supreme aspects. The emptiness is in fact not voidness. It is the emptiness that is endowed with all supreme aspects. According to Kala Chakra, where it talks about how all phenomena is empty, and it is called the great compassionate treasure. In fact, all the merits are already inherently existent. The 6 paramitas, the wisdom of 6 paramitas are already inherently complete, and in this kind of emptiness, in the union of emptiness and luminosity is already complete. So in this kind of qualities, just as how if one painter is not there, then the whole painting cannot be completed, then without any one of the qualities, then the 6 paramitas cannot be complete. The qualities cannot be complete. Lots of people would say that I don't have to have morality, I don't have to have generosity and patience. I'm a Mahayati practitioner. Then you can look at yourself and reflect upon yourself throughout this teaching. In fact, the 6 qualities, if the 6 qualities are not complete, how could you realize the Dharmakaya? If you were to have all the other 5 but not morality, then it is not complete. Without either one of them, it is not complete. So you need all of them. According to the Great Heap of Jewels, the Sutra of Great Heap of Jewels, it then stated that, rather it is according to the Mahasamgata Sutra, where it says that if one lacks perfect accomplishment, even in one activity, one cannot be titled as the Tathagata with the complete qualities. Therefore, only after every activity is accomplished, one is said to have attained the unsurpassable Bodhi. This is quite important. And next one is using the metaphor of the sun, or the example of the sun, which then talks about the 4 or 3 kinds of qualities accordingly: illuminating and radiating and purifying and inseparable from each other. Analytical wisdom, primordial wisdom, and total liberation corresponds to the light rays and orb of the sun. So it talks about the 4 kinds of qualities with a metaphor. The first one is the wisdom of suchness, and then the wisdom of omniscience. as well as the quality of liberation. So those are the three aspects that is attained at the level of Buddhahood: the wisdom of suchness, wisdom of omniscience, and qualities of liberation. So it has the illuminating aspect, that is then the quality of wisdom of omniscience. So it could illuminate all phenomena. It has the quality of radiating, that is the wisdom of suchness. And then the pure and the purify is the quality that is included in the qualities of liberation. So illuminating, radiating, and purifying. Also, on top of that is the inseparability of all the three stated above. As it is stated before, it is indivisible. So using the example of the sun, it has the quality of illuminating, it has the quality to shine through, and it has the quality of pure. So these three qualities are no different and are not of two than with the sun. And then last stanza, it says that there is no other nirvana than this stanza is in fact constantly quoted by others. So explanation of Buddhahood as being nirvana. One will therefore not attain nirvana without attaining the state of Buddhahood, just as one could not see the sun if one were to eliminate its light and its rays. All the Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, all of these, without attaining Buddhahood, that you cannot call them attained nirvana. For the same reason, the true nirvana is to attain the state of Buddhahood. According to the sutra, it says that according to the sutra, it says that there's no Buddha. In fact, Buddhahood is nirvana, and no other than Dharmakaya. So last time when we talked about how Ponsukar Rinpoche taught on there's no other nirvana, there's no Buddha other than Buddha, there's no nirvana. So it's very similar, where it talks about how the different kind of accomplishment and realizations attained by mundane beings, by the Shravakas, by the Pratika Buddhas. In fact, such kind of attainment cannot be called nirvana, and we'll stop here today.